Can you create photographs that you're genuinely proud of in just 15 minutes? I only had a quarter of an hour and one lens to find out. We'd driven 10 minutes from home to enjoy some fish and chips overlooking the Tyne, and I wondered if I had enough time and energy for a very short photography session. We all have times where we only have a few minutes that we can dedicate to our photography, and this has been one of those months for me. Every now and then we like to drive out to a local spot, relax and enjoy the views whilst eating a meal. We are really quite lucky that we live just 10 minutes away from the coast and have a few spots to choose from as well. This is one of my favourites. It's quite high up and gives 180-degree views looking down the River Tyne, over the North Shields Fish Quay, across the river to some urban industrial scenes, then towards beaches and cliffs, before looking out to sea. I always feel like I notice something different each time I come here. I quite fancied doing some ICM photography on this day, so I chose my lightest camera, an OM1, and limited myself to one lens. Then I fitted an adjustable ND filter. I only had enough energy for about 15 minutes this day, so I wanted to make the most of that time. Whilst we ate, I studied the scenes around me, and I decided what I would like to photograph. Luckily, there were lots of options. I started off slowly to get into the swing of things. Just sat in the car, resting on the window frame. I chose the obvious scenes first. The beaches, sea and grass-covered cliffs directly opposite us. This was more about colours at this point and just getting warmed up. Because it was a bright day, I fitted my variable ND filter and settled on shutter speeds between about 0.4 and 0.6 seconds. It gives that painterly feel without losing the subject entirely. I started out with easy sideways sweeping motions just to get a few shots taken. Very typical ICM scenes really, but I do like the colours. And yes, I did enhance these first handful. There were plenty of wildflowers and grasses just in front of the car park. So I sat on the barriers and I had a little play to see what I could produce from these. With the bright yellows, greens and purples against the blues of the water. I stuck with the shutter speed between 0.4 and 0.6 for these images and tried moving the camera a small amount in various directions. These were quite graphic, bold blocks of colour in some and painterly in others. I like that you can still make out what the subject is, and I enjoy the grasses in these few. My favourite of these is the last one, which was much closer up. I then turned my attention inland, down the river towards more industrial scenes with cranes and a wooden pier. For this group of images, I experimented with a whole range of motions, from circles, semicircles, light shaking, moving up and down, and a jerking motion. I like the dark lines from the cranes, the towers and the old wooden pier. You can tell they're industrial river or urban river scenes. I also enjoy the pastel colour palette that I ended up with. I have tried this before elsewhere on the coast near us, in the Blythe area, and I ended up with some funky ICM images that made me think of nuclear plants, such as these two here. At this point, I was wishing I had brought my zoom lens, but bringing one lens was quite deliberate. Whilst it restricts us from what we might normally choose to photograph, it also pushes us to get more creative and try things in different ways. I only have one lens for my OM1 camera, and it's the 90mm macro lens, which is the equivalent of the 180mm in a full frame camera. This lens worked fine for what I was doing. Taking away that extra decision making whilst out also opens up more creative freedom, where we can let go of control and just go with the flow. This is part of what I love about ICM. We rarely know exactly what we will end up with. I have noticed that I increasingly enjoy this sort of creative freedom and lack of control. It can be very liberating. Having been very much occupied with controlling every aspect of my photography in the past, this is a much more relaxing approach. I'm not creating for anyone else, not with any goal in mind. I'm creating experimentally, just to see how things turn out, and enjoying losing myself in the moment. The complete opposite of my usual approach. Slightly closer to us up the river were some light-coloured houses and flats. I tried a different approach with these. I used a longer shutter speed, between 0.6 and 1 second, because I wanted to use an upward and downward motion, but stopping 1 to 3 times during the exposure. So in a 1 second exposure, I would stay still for 0.2 of a second, move up, stop still for another fraction of a second, and then move up more. Stop again, move up again. It's like moving upwards, but in a jerky way, so that you get some parts in focus, but with some movement. I wanted to get layers of houses. I love this effect, and it's more effective with the river as foreground and sky above. So nothing to distract from the painterly houses. I did try adding a little extra editing with these, adding in some clarity, texture and contrast. I also edited some in Exposure 5 software. There is a bright red herd-groin lighthouse on the South Shield side of the river, which just had to star in a few pictures too, with 2 quite bold, vivid images and 1 more pastel result. It wouldn't be North Shields without a passing ferry, and this one was huge, so large that I couldn't fit it all in the frame, even as it left Tynemouth, as it was partially blocked by the trees by this point. Then I turned my attention back to the car park for a last couple. One of a cyclist, and one very abstract image of our car. So I ended up with a nice variety. I wasn't fully finished though. One last thing had caught my eyes. I'm a sucker for a bit of peeling paint or rust, and the barriers in the car park had fantastic textures, so I just had to grab a few shots of those to use when creating my next texture packs. Just look at those gorgeous textures on these. I love them. I could probably easily have spent 15 minutes just taking photos of these. We took a scenic route home, driving around Tynemouth and Whitley Bay, up to St Mary's Lighthouse, which is another favourite spot, just minutes away from us. where I took a few ICM shots in the snow earlier this year. I didn't take any photos this day though, but here are two from that snowy day at sunset. We really got lucky with the colours that day. We rounded off our short trip with some delicious vegan pear and elderberry and Amarena cherry ice cream, which brought forth a chorus of oohs and ahs and oh my god. This was the best ice cream I think I've ever had. So if you live in Tyne and Weir, do check out Demio's in Whitley Bay for their ice cream. You won't regret it. 15 minutes wasn't quite enough to photograph everything that I could see, but it was enough to slow down, notice things that I otherwise would have looked straight past, and come home with photographs that I genuinely enjoyed making. If you're interested in more ICM videos, do let me know in the comments. I do quite a lot of ICM photography, both locally on short trips like this one, but also at home. I photograph a huge selection of subjects using ICM, anything from the ribbon ICM, which I've shared in previous videos, to landscapes, people, street photography, musicians, museums, architecture, transport, animals, insects, flowers, trees, and my own art. Even items around the home and garden. Earlier this year, I spent some time at the National Glass Centre doing some ICM, and I'm hoping to return before it closes permanently. If there's enough interest, then I might actually do a video on that, as the variety of glass items and shapes opened up a whole new world for me with the ICM.